Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the third day of the one-week online workshop Cellular, Automata and Secured Hardware Design. Today's talks mainly cover randomness and security. Today our first speaker is an eminent scientist, Professor R. Ramanujam. Professor Ramanujam is a professor in the Theoretical Computer Science Research Group in Tata Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai, India. He got his BE Honours in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from BITS Pilani and his PhD in Computer Science from Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai. After postdoctoral research at the City University of New York, he joined the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai as faculty in 1987. His research interests are mathematical and philosophical logic in computer science and theory of computation and their applications to theory of distributed systems, game theory and security theory. His other research interests include temporal logics and verification, partial order models of concurrency and logics of knowledge. He is currently on the editorial board of ACM Transactions on Computational Logic. In 2010, he was Lawrence Fellow of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences at the Netherlands Institute for Advanced Studies. He has been actively involved in the Indian Association for Research in Computing Science and the Association for Logic in India. Professor Ramanujan has been associated with the Tamil Nadu Science Forum since 1990, active in its involvement in science popularization and school education. He is editor of Tulip, a monthly science magazine for children. He was a member of the Yashpal committee that formulated the National Curriculum Framework 2005 and chaired the National Focus Group on Teaching of Mathematics NCERT. Currently, he is Vice President of the Mathematics Teachers Association of India and a member of the Core Committee of CS Pathshala and ECM in India initiative. He is also one of the initiators of the Indian Scientist Response to COVID-19 ISRC, which started as a group of Indian scientists who come together voluntarily in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and has now grown to include more than 500 scientists, engineers, technologists, doctors, public health researchers, science communicators, journalists, and students from a range of disciplines affiliated to eminent research institutes of science and technology, universities, colleges, hospitals, and private laboratories. Today, Professor Ramanujam will give a talk on feeling secure, the need for formal proof of security. Sir will take 2 sessions. We are eager to listen his valuable words on the need for formal proof of security. Over to you, sir.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Oh, very good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so good morning to you all, and it's a pleasure for me to be here at this workshop. We thank Shukanto for the invitation to speak here. Yeah, it would be a thanks, Kamalika. It would be nice to see some people that I can talk to, and I, like my lectures to be interactive, and do feel free to interrupt anytime with questions and comments. I have given the title as feeling secure, because security is the topic of our discussions here. And now, what I am really a logician and automata theorist and looking at security. And what I'm concentrating on and I want to discuss is really proof of security. And first thing also is to realize that security is much more than cryptography. I mean, this is something that's normally forgotten. So the need for formal proof is something fairly important. And I'm here mainly to sell logic in the context of security. Okay, so with that, let me start. I mean, the summary of what I want to say is this. Reasoning about security almost always involves reasoning about mutual knowledge and ignorance. Somebody knows this, somebody should not know this, somebody doesn't know this is the kind of assertions that we have got. And proving that somebody knows something is often easier. Proving somebody does not know something is not that easy. And while analysis of cryptographic primitives is important in security protocols or security theory in general, cryptography cannot be equated with security. And this is probably obvious to many people, but almost always forgotten when you see formal analysis. There's a clear need for formal proofs and algorithmic tools for attack generation. And I think this is again something very important because finding attacks by human beings is, mainly when you're lucky, right? That attacks are hard to find and we need algorithms. And part of what I'm talking about is really that. And what I would like to argue is that logic and especially proof theory provide an analytical tool for security verification. When somebody claims that something is secure, if you want to verify that the claim is correct, that's the arena in which I'm talking. I'm very sorry that I have very little cellular automata. The only connection with cellular automata was in the title slide when I said it's part of the workshop. Shukanto is the person to blame, and I made it. I wish there was some cellular automata content in what I was saying, but you will see some automata towards the end of it. So here is a question. Do you have an account in some public email, like Gmail, Yahoo? And how do you log into such an account? Give your username and password. Why? Yeah, Kamalika, I've already warned you. You are my victim. So how do you log into your Gmail? Right? I know you use Gmail. Invoke gmail.com.
Yeah, username and password. I gave you username and password.
Yeah, but why do you do that?
To make it
Authentication, sir?
Sorry?
Authentication?
I couldn't hear.
Authentication, he is saying.
Authentication, sir.
But who's authenticating whom?
Like we are a genuine user of that account.
Who says so? I mean,
Like our details say so, sir, because we are already logged in once and we set up our own mail ID and password. So it authenticates that we are the actual users. We are using it.
Wait a moment, okay?
Okay, sir.
Supposing you come to my house. I mean, I hope you will come, right? And I have my laptop and you want to check Gmail. And I say, hey, go ahead, use my machine, right? Or, just a few years ago, we all used to go to internet cafes and log in and so on, right? I mean, you go to a computer, you have your browser, I don't know, the Chrome or Netscape or whatever, and then you say gmail.com, and a page comes, right, with a box for username and a password, and you give. Now, you think it's very difficult to show you a page that looks like the Gmail page, Google page? Come on. That's, an undergraduate exercise in web page generation, right? You think it's very difficult to, now, on a mobile and smartphone, it's much harder. But if you actually look at the kind of stuff that's sitting in your, do you even know all the kind of software that is sitting on your mobile? You think it's very difficult to produce a page that looks like a Gmail page? And I don't know who that was, 2020 ITM. He was saying authentication. Who's authenticating?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's your name, please?
Hemant Kumar, sir.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, who's authenticating whom? All you see is a box, and you are giving username and password. That's all.
Yes, sir.
Please remember that.
Yes, sir.
And so you think if you are actually using my machine, right? I generously ask you to please feel free to use, right? It's not at all difficult for me to produce a page that looks like that, and you are giving me the username and password. Now, if I were smart, what do you think I will do?
You can just store my username and password, sir, in a database so that you can redirect me to another page,
and then what
any malicious page.
And then what will I do?
so you can have my personal information regarding the
Well,
my
that
mail
is
ID and
true.
all.
But if you think about it, if I am really smart, right, I will take that username and password and quietly transfer control to the actual Gmail page. So the next page that you get is actually from Gmail. So as far as you are concerned, you have seen a page that looks like Gmail,
Yes, sir.
google.com. You gave me the username and password, and I have quietly transferred. The next page that you see is actually something from a Google server. That's it, right? As far
Sir,
as you
what
are
about the
concerned,
URL, sir?
what's the problem? You think again, it's very difficult to see. It's just two strings that you are giving, right? Those
Yes,
two
yes.
strings are being passed on to some particular URL. I mean, all I've got is an intermediary which collects this and forwards it. No problem. Exactly what the process on running on your machine is doing, there is an intermediate process that's taking it and forwarding it to the process that you intended to give it to in the first place. So as far as you are
Sir, so
concerned, there
yes,
is
sir.
no difference at all. In terms of the behavior of the machine, you'd notice no difference because this has happened at the speed of light, right?
Yes, sir.
How much time do you think it takes for me to take it and then forward it to the next site? Nothing.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right. So observationally, it looks exactly the same to you. But of course, I have got this. And remember that I don't have any particular interest in stealing, your secrets
Sir,
and
was
read
that
all the.
like yes, sir, sir. Sir, was
Huh?
that like a MITM attack, sir, on me?
No, 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 no. Don't use jargon. I just want to I mean, the whole point is to understand things as they are, right?
Yes, sir, sir. I
So
just thought it was like a passive attack, like MITM
no,
attack,
no, no. I'm
management
not.
attack.
I'm not using any words, formal words yet. We'll worry about it later, right?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
sir.
can
Thank
worry
you, sir.
about all that later. The point is to. Remember the title I said, feeling secure. You're you're feeling secure because you go through a certain ritual, right? You click on something, enter something, and then you see and you feel secure. And you yourself told me just now that you feel very secure because you need a password, you set it up, you use, and then in fact, why do you do that? Because you get access to your inbox. Right? What is your inbox? I mean, right? I don't understand what is this your inbox business, right? Um, yeah, suppose, yeah, I mean, again, Kamalika, I don't know if you wear a chain, right? I mean, I can't see you. So supposing you are wearing a chain, right? And I say, is it your chain? Right? I hope it is, right? And then I say, go ahead, prove it to me. How will you prove it? Do you have any proof that it's yours? A pen in my pocket, right? It's like any other million pens, right? If I show you and I claim it's my pen, why is it my pen? Who says, right? Go ahead and prove it. You can't, right? It's yours because it is with you. The moment somebody steals it, it's gone. No longer yours. There's no identity attached to that. So when you say my inbox, where is that my coming from? Do you even, it's a physical file, right? Do you know where it is? Do you know where your inbox file is? It's a physical file on a physical machine, right? I mean, probability is very high. It's in one of the data centers in Old Mumbai Road in Chennai. It's full of data centers of its kind. Or it may be in Hong Kong. Or it may be, you have no idea where your file is, right? And so who has access rights to that? I mean, there is all this very brave statement that I give my password because only I can use it, right? Only I can enter. What about the system administrator of that machine which has your file? Does he or she have access to that file? Well, I mean, yeah, but if you make me system administrator and tell me that I can't access the file inside it, I'll say, I'll resign next day. How can I protect, how can I administer the machine if I don't have access to? What about the head of Google India in Bangalore? I don't know who it is now. It used to be Bharat, whom I knew as a student in IT class. Does he have access to your, it's a Gmail account after all, right? And he's the boss of Google. Does he have access rights to your inbox folder? So this is the point I'm trying to make, right? Feeling secure is not about I use some particular Diffie-Hellman or whatever, right? It's about a whole lot of things out there, right? And every link out there, there is something going on. And in terms of this access rights, by the way, who has access rights? It's easy to find out. Um, my friend told me just now about when I first set up the account, Google account, I did something, right? What do? You all kinds of personal details it asks for, and then at the end you do one thing. What is that? You click on something to say, I agree to the terms and conditions. How many people here have read the terms and conditions? Well, as a consumer, I don't think it matters that much. But if you claim to work in security, if you're interested in computer security, I think you better read it, right? One of the things it says, in fact, if you read it, it says, please take a hard copy of this and keep with you, right? Of course, nobody ever reads it, so there's no issue at all. So all this information that I'm talking about is in the public domain. There is nothing secret. It's all in the public domain. Who has access rights? How is it? But we don't bother. And it's okay not to bother as a general rule. After all, that is the whole idea. The end user should not have to worry about all these things. But a security expert cannot take that attitude. In fact, a computer scientist cannot take that attitude. Because it is all about, we want to study security. If we want to study security, we have to take communication security seriously, file security seriously, interface security seriously, device security, the whole thing. Web security, security on the cloud, and they're all not one and the same thing. If we reduce it all to one single item, we call it cryptography, whatever we call it, whatever, right? I'm afraid we'll miss the whole ecosystem this is about. And part of thinking about these things, and somewhere we have to get to formalism. The need for formalism becomes very important. And then you see, I don't have to sell mathematics to this community, but it's okay. So let's say that you get past all this. So the point is, consider all the assumptions that go into this act. So this should convince you that identifying the underlying logical principles about reasoning about security is very important. And then, of course, you have to do it. There is a lot about logic to learn. But I think this little episode, I think, and then, of course, suppose all this is okay, it's actually the Gmail, actually you're connecting to the server, you give your username and password. Let's say that I'm just watching the channel, right? Can I get your username and password? No, of course not, because it's encrypted. I think we all know that. But then if I just keep collecting plain text every day, watching, let's say that, remember your mobile, after all, is an electronic device, right? Having a device by the side to read off what it says is not very difficult. It's really very not very difficult. There are electronics engineers who can trivially come up with such a thing. The question is, if I keep collecting and get a dump, maybe after 1 month, you take all that raw data. From that, can one figure out and get your username and password? Think about it. The answer is not completely trivial, right? Remember that raw data which just collects what's going on, right? Communications between you and whatever server, right? Is electronically available. And from there, by analyzing that, remember, these are days of big data and machine learning, a lot of software of all kinds, right? Can I look at that raw data, just bit stream, right? Can I look at that bit stream and figure out whatever keys that we are using? And of course, these are probabilistic statements, but what probability? I'm not going to address this right now, but again, my point is that at every step, even if the browser is okay, there is no impersonation involved. There is, even if in all this that I'm saying, cryptography works perfectly. Even if cryptography is working perfectly, there are, I'm just, one thing is about side channel attacks, but my point is that insecurity is all over the place, and we need to get a good handle on what are the sources of insecurity. So here, so let me forget about all this complicated stuff. That's why I call it kid crypto, because this is something that I do with school children. Right? So we are in a room. Here we are, there are 49 of us on this Google Meet. So we would like to find the average age of everyone present in the room. Assume that there are more than 2 persons. That's important. Now, this is the objective. None of us, of course, wish to know the age of any other individual in the room. Right? I mean, I don't want to know anybody's age. I just want to know the average age. Now, how would you do this? Let's, for convenience, seat all the n persons in a circle. Right? One sits next to 2, 2 to 3, 2 next, then 3, then 4, then 5, and so on. Then 49, or 48, or whatever it is, and then 1. Right? You sit in a circle. Now, can you think of a way by which you can find the average age of everyone in the room without anyone finding out what anybody else's age? Any idea? I mean, this is security, right? This is security protocol. We are designing it. We are asked to design a security protocol. Okay. I want an algorithm, find the average age, but yeah, the security property here is that no one should know anybody else's age. Anyone? I mean, think about it.
So
Everybody, yeah.
So starting with a random value, everyone added the personal age with that random value and forward to the next person, and finally, of course, there should be a centralized controller of that solution, but that can be a simple solution with a centralized
Excellent.
controller.
Yeah. So that's all there is to it, right? But I have a question to ask that I'll come to later. Right? Now, if one way is that I can start, write down my age, pass it to 2, add, keep adding and passing on, and when you come back, you've got the total. Now, of course, that doesn't work because person 2 finds person 1's age. And like what he said, instead of that, like what Raul said, we start with some number and I add that. So I start with some random number set, and then I add my age to it and then pass it on. So person 2 who gets it cannot tell what my age is because I have added a random number to it, right? And therefore, now, why should it be random? Yes, so why would I need a random number?
So the random number is for purpose for making secure for the first person age with respect to the second person age.
Well, supposing I add, 1864. Not a random number. I picked 1864 and added to my age and passed it on to company. Can she get any information about my age? So the point is this. I agree that what you are saying is we should eliminate background information, right? Somehow, but if there is background information, we should eliminate that by choosing something sufficiently large, right? I mean, we know that the expectation for age is always between 0 and 120 or something like that, right? So, and visually, if you see, maybe you can even bring it down to 20 to 100 or something. Right? So even if you have background information, adding a sufficiently large number will take care of it. Anyway, so thank you very much. And that's an example of the security problem. Right? Because we have got a security objective and we have got an algorithm. Now, if everybody follows the algorithm, and this is something that we will see. All along, there is an assumption that all honest principles involved follow the protocol. This is an assumption you make. So, see, of course, if somebody doesn't follow in between, lies, then you can't tell, right? So you're assuming that all honest people will actually add their age, follow the protocol. So here, even for something as simple as this, proving that no person I can actually find out any person J's age is not true. And this is like the baby stuff, right? So this is a point I want to make, that in general, so here is another kit crypto too. Here is another puzzle. I don't know if you guys have seen puzzles like this. This is called Waldo search. Waldo is this guy with spectacles. See, he's a character. And the puzzle is like this. You would be given a scene like this. Waldo is somewhere here. And you are supposed to find out. Like, usually it's a messy scene, and he would be wearing some clothes. You know who the character is, but he'll wear different clothes, doing different disguises, and you're supposed to figure it out. Now here, there are two children staring at the Waldo. And Ankita has actually spotted Waldo. He says, "Hey, I found Waldo." And the other one says, "Of course, I don't believe you. You are just saying it." Right? Now it's no fun showing Babita the location of Waldo either. Because of course, if I show her, then you will know. Right? Now, Babita's statement is exquisite when Ankita can convince her that she's seen Waldo without revealing the location. Is there any way you can do this? Is there any way I can convince you that I have seen Waldo, but at the end of which you should have no idea where Waldo is? I don't want to reveal the location to you. Any ideas for this? Now, one solution might be to take the puzzle, make a Xerox copy of it, right? I have seen Waldo, right? I make a Xerox copy, I go somewhere privately, cut out Waldo from that, right? And come and show. See? Then you will. But this is high tech, right? It requires a photocopy machine and so on. Let's do something more low tech. After all, they are children, right? Okay, here is another solution. What I do is cover the sheet, right? The puzzle. I just cover it with some white paper. And now I know where Waldo is, right? What I do is to cut out exactly the shape of Waldo and show you through that window, right? So you can see that I have seen Waldo. And then you whisk off the paper. You're back in that CC. This will do it. But what is the problem with this? If Waldo is in one corner, right, you will get information that Waldo is in some corner, right? Or some location information is revealed. How do I get rid of that information also? By choosing a sufficiently large white sheet, right? That's all. If the puzzle actually is a square of side x, I choose a square of side 2x. So the area is 4 times x squared, and then I can camouflage the location completely. I can make sure that I show you the window that I show you Waldo through is actually in the center of the sheet, right? And that's it. Then the moment I whisk out, you are in fact convinced that I have seen Waldo, and you have no location information at all, right? What is going on? What's the difference between the first one and the second one here, right? The first one, so I want to say that this is all security protocols are about, right? Algorithms for security are only about these things. You have some security objective and you are designing an algorithm. And here, the proof of security, right? In the first one, like I said, always when you do security, there's a proof of security needed, right? That your security objective is met. In the first one, because that nobody learns in the stage. Here, it's more complicated. Here, the proof, remember what is the idea of proof? Logic, logic, when we say there is a proof, it convinces a skeptical adversary, right? A proof is something that convinces someone else. Okay? So here's a proof that should convince you, but there is an added thing that no information is leaked. And this is another fundamental property of security, that you want to measure information, secure information leakage, and you want to minimize it. In fact, you want zero leakage. And this is also something that we can mathematically set up and prove, that you don't get one bit of extra information than being convinced. Right? You don't get any information at all about the location. Again, I'm not, rather than doing the formal proof, I want to say that this is the sort of reasoning that we want to employ. And remember, that's why I said it's about reasoning about knowledge and ignorance. That is at the heart of this business. Here is another problem. Maybe I should skip this. And I mean, I like these problems a lot because, as I said, you can do this with school children, and high school children, and they understand this very well as well. And these are what we call zero knowledge proofs in cryptography, right? And I mean, this second one is to show that these things are probabilistic. And by repeating the experiment many times, you can boost up the probability as you want. And let me skip that. So these are so-called zero knowledge proofs because we seek to prove that some information is communicated, but no extra information is leaked. Now, this is used in authentication systems where A wants to prove its identity to B via some secret information, such as a password, but does not want B to learn anything about the secret. It's used in blockchains now, very fashionable now. There's a lot of work going on. Enables control of certain blocks to provide access to a particular user while restricting access to others. Zero knowledge proofs are employed in all these things. And these are algorithms of the small kind that I said, which get embedded into all these systems. And my point is that those are the algorithms whose correctness proofs that I'm really interested in, right? Because formal proofs of those embedded algorithms are really what we are really interested in. And once we understand that and we can prove them correct and cascade them and see how information is, we can analyze information flow across subsystems, we can also talk about systems. And witnessing, this is another standard way zero knowledge proofs are used because you want to witness that some particular transaction occurred without actually knowing the details of what was actually done. Voting systems are the classic examples of these. We have elections coming up, right? You want to know that somebody voted, you should be able to, the authority should be able to certify that Shavik voted without being able to know what the vote was, right? That's very important. And zero knowledge proofs are very important in such things. Right? Now, okay, so I have so far been taking examples from what are called security protocols, right? Protocols for authentication, protocols for whatever, etc. or of one. There's also this idea of access control, which come more into system security and database security, operating system security, and web security. And they all have a slightly different. Now, something like SSL is very interesting because it combines both. So access control. Now, but to understand these things, here is a famous example. Famous because it's an anti. So this is this hotel cards, right? I don't know how many people have this experience that you go to a hotel, you check in, and they give you a card. Old days you would use for a key. Today you use a card, and you go and you swipe it, right? You press it against on the door. There is a top. You show it, and the door opens. Or you put it in and swipe it, and the door opens. So upon check-in, you get a card with your own key, and this is typically a pseudo-random number. And this is important. So what it does is that the card has a chip, and the person at the desk, again, if you see, swipes it. In the process, it generates a pseudo-random number and puts it into that card. Now, the lock, when you go to the room, the lock reads your card and opens if the key is correct. Right? Now, here is a problem. How does that lock know what is there is a pseudo-random number that was generated downstairs at check-in. I take it and I put it and I go to my door. How does that lock know this particular number? What do you think? Do you think it is actually using some internet or some Wi-Fi connectivity to talk to the reception? or some wired connectivity. The computer at the check-in and the computer on the lock are communicating with each other and finding that number. Does anyone?
So maybe the pseudo random number was directly connected to the door, sir. The door lock.
No, that's not. So then it can't be a pseudo random number, right? I mean, if it is a random number that you just generated, it can't be already present in something and you know that it presents.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm just thinking like they were using a software like if they generate once, it will be directly assigned to the hotel room, and also with the card they're carrying.
No, that I can put it into the card. How does that lock know that? The lock should somehow learn this, right?
Maybe the lock was connected to the computer software, sir.
That's what I'm asking. Now, you will find that that's not true. In fact, for the sake of safety, right? For the sake of physical safety of your hotel, remember there can be fire hazard, there can be all kinds of things. These things are all standalone, right? And you cannot have any kind of communication between these that goes through the local network, right? That again is a security compromise. So the way these systems are designed, there is absolutely no communication between the lock on the door and your computer at a check-in. So how is it that it knows? So each lock is a standalone battery-powered device without access to a central computer or the hotel. So how does it know that your key is correct? Okay, so this is a system that has been in operation for quite a long time. And I think for the last 20, 25 years, this is what hotels have all used. And how does the lock know? It's a classic problem of verifying credentials. Actually, what happens is your card always has two keys, not one. The pair key 1, key 2. Key 1 is what is already there in the card. This is that of the previous occupant. And key 2 is yours that is freshly issued. You understand now? So when that person is swiping your card, whatever number that is already there goes into key 1, and a new number is issued, which becomes key 2. So that's the pair that you carry. Now the lock stores the current occupant's key always. Okay, so when you go to that room, that lock is holding the key of the previous occupant, right? So it holds, you have a pair key 1, key 2, the lock is holding key 1. Key 1 it recognizes, right? And then when you enter the room for the first time, it recognizes your key 1 equals its record, and then it replaces its memory with key 2, second column. Is it clear? Subsequently, when you re-enter, your key 2 equals the record, and hence it does not update the memory. Your card will always have the pair key 1, key 2. First, it realizes that key 1 is equal, and therefore it loads key 2 onto it. And then every time it checks, and it checks that key 2 is equal, this is how it continues. So this is a fairly simple system, and as I said, this has been going, used, as far as I know, since the 90s. People have been using this. In fact, there are, some 2 or 3 companies in the world which produce these systems, and they pretty much monopolize the market from over here. Now, this protects the hotel. Why do hotels like this? Because this protects the hotel from guests who go away without checking out or returning their key card. People simply walk away with them, right? So the hotel doesn't have any problem at all, and it can issue new cards without worrying. They don't need to worry about collecting it back and ensuring security through that. Old days, that was always a problem, physical keys. Many people would simply walk away with the keys, and you have to ask them to mail the keys back, etc., etc. Because as long as there is a key floating around outside, that's compromise for security. Otherwise, you have to change the locks. All a problem. Now, we would like to know that the policy is safe, that only the owner of a room can be in it. Is it true? Of course, it's not true. Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking this question. Okay? Now, there is nothing to stop a guest from re-entering his old room after the next one has checked in but before she has entered, right? Okay. I mean, I have checked out, right? I have left my luggage in the reception desk. We do it all the time, right? I say I'll come back in the afternoon. Okay, I've checked out. Now, well, and then I quietly go back in the list and I can enter the room. Now, meanwhile, you have checked in, you get a card, and then the door is locked. You come, you walk in, and you find me sitting inside. Possible. So the room better be empty when a guest enters first, or all beds are off. So you should somehow the hotel should make sure that when a guest checks in for the first time, the room is empty. Typically, they always send somebody along with to check that. Most protocols, they ensure that there is always someone from the hotel, some staff who go along with you to make sure that the room is empty. Okay, so you just make a slight modification. Please listen for a moment. Okay? The question is, does even this suffice? Okay. Now, the following attack has been found, which I call guest in the middle. Okay. Now, this is not an easy attack. Guest 1 checks in, and guest 1 obtains K1, K2, but does not enter the room. What is there in the lock? The lock is having K1. Guest 2 checks in. What does guest 2 get? K2, K3, but does not enter the room either. The lock still has K1, and guest 2 now has K2, K3. Now, guest 1 checks in again and obtains K3, K4 and goes to the room, but he uses the card K1, K2. Finds the room empty, feels safe. Lock has been updated to K2. Now, when guest 1 leaves the room, guest 2 enters and makes off with the luggage. Now, okay, as I said, it's not that easy to, but it actually is an attack. Now, you might say, why would you go through all this kind of complicated thing? Why should people do it? That's not the point, right? When you talk about an attack on a security property, and okay, so this was not something that was found by a human being. Part of what I want to tell you was that when this protocol was formalized in Isabel Hall, and this is Tobias Nipko's group in Munich, which ran these and did automatic verification, and the theorem prover produced this counterexample to show that you can. So I mean, this kind of highly cockeyed scenarios, very complicated attacks. We are not very good at imagining such things, right? Formal proofs are very good for this reason. Algorithms generate such attacks routines because algorithm doesn't care, right? Simply, these are just scenarios, and they can put scenarios together. I have seen attacks with very, very complicated scenarios. The point is that the people who generate attacks, remember, the hackers are also using programs, and that's the reason why you should worry about attacks. You can't trust human beings to find these attacks because hackers are anyway looking for attacks, and they employ programs to do this job. So for verification, you do need, and this is, as I said, something that a theorem prover found. And, okay, so Roger Needham, a very famous statement, said, "Security protocols are 3-line programs that people still manage to get wrong." Right, and it's true that all these security algorithms are all very tiny, very little. I mean, it's very, very rare to find something that exceeds one screen. Right? I remember Ojo Andal used to talk about the one-screen criteria. He said anything that exceeds one screen, and he meant the dumb terminals of your, right? Anything that exceeds one screen, one moment, yeah? One screen, you must split it up into procedures, because otherwise people cannot watch. Yeah, what's the question?
Sir, what about Mastercard, sir?
Mastercard? No. I was talking about hotel key cards.
Yes, sir. In some movies also, if they forget key card, any of the staff's key card or master key card will be there.
Oh,
so
you
that
mean
they can unlock any room.
That's also a problem. But this is the notion of a trust, right?
No, sir. How was that actually happening, sir? Because we have only 2 keys, and it must be equal to the number in the old key card. So how many numbers in
So
the
that's
Mastercard?
absolutely true. That's absolutely
Yes, sir.
true. So you tell me how that works. That's not very difficult to figure out. I'm going to give that as an exercise to you. Okay. Yeah.
Like, do all the key numbers are stored in the master
No,
key
no,
card, sir?
no. It can't be so. Remember, it's a random
Yes.
number. It's generated. As I said, I leave
Yes,
it to you to figure out. Okay. It's a nice question, and I can tell you the answer, but only after you have tried. Yeah. Any other question?
No, sir.
Okay. Let me proceed. Yeah. So what are communication protocols? Right. Communications are for sending secrets. Right. The fundamental question. I mean, it seems like a childish question for people here, right? I mean, we all know so much, but still, I think not that obvious to me. Right? How does A send a secret X to B on a public channel? This is the fundamental question. Now, let's say that the secret X is, something very important. Right? The Kohinoor diamond, in fact. Okay. So, now how do I send it to Chicago? I get a box. Don't worry, it's the Kohinoor diamond, right? So, what kind of box do I need? I get a box that is unbreakable. Lock it with an unbreakable lock. Lock it with a key. What's the point of locking it with a key? Okay, here is a natural question. Why do you lock your door when you leave your house? Yeah. Yes, shall we? You lock your door with your key, right? Why do you do that?
So, keeping save it from the outsider.
But how does it give you? I mean, this physical act of locking your lock with your key, how does it give you safety from outside?
So this gives me a feeling of security that no one with other rather than me.
I know. I'm asking you. I'm asking you why. How? The point is that the number of keys to that lock, right, is 1, 2, right? Typically, we all have, we have like 2 copies of the key or maybe 3 copies of the key, right? We leave one with the neighbor, and we feel safe. If that copy could be freely xeroxed and sold in Variahat, you wouldn't feel particularly safe, would you? I mean, you feel safe because there's only one key. Let me bring it down to only one. Right? If there's only one key, then I feel perfectly safe because, and the act of opening that with any other key takes a lot of effort, right? It's not that it's impossible, but it takes a lot of effort. So that's your deterrence, right? Somebody else is going to come in and try to open it without the key. They will take time, and while they take time, somebody else can come and figure out, right? So this is the fundamental use of a locking key. Now let me get back to my Kohinoor diamond. I'm selling this, I'm sending this incredible diamond to Chicago. So I put it in an unbreakable box, lock it with an unbreakable lock with a key where I'm guaranteed that this is a unique key. Okay, I send it. Now Kamalika is watching. There's nothing she can do because she can't break the lock. She can't break the box. Remember, they were unbreakable. And she doesn't have the key. I have the key, right? So even if she knows that I'm sending the Kohinoor diamond, there's nothing she can do. Okay? It reaches Shukanto. He's very happy. Now what does he do? There's nothing he can do because he can't open the box. He can't break the box. He can't break the lock. And remember, there is exactly one key. So the problem is I have to send a key to him sometime. So how do I send the key? If I send the key, by normal post, Kamalika is watching, right? It's very easy for her to take the key. And once she has the key, she can make sure, at least she can make sure that Shukanto cannot open. So the key has to be as secure as the diamond, right? So how do I send the key? Maybe put it in another box, another unbreakable box with another unbreakable lock and with a unique key and send it to him. That doesn't help. Right? So any solution for how I solve this problem?
So the receiver should have with some algorithm to generate the key. Otherwise, it will be.
Sorry.
So the receiver should have
Sorry, I
with
didn't get
some.
it.
The receiver should have with some algorithm which he can automatically generate the key.
No algorithm. Remember, there's diamond sitting there. It's a box and a key. What algorithm? I mean, yeah, you can go to some nearby shop, get something done if you want. I don't understand. These are not numbers. There is a fat diamond sitting inside. Yeah, okay. So again, you have to think like children, I'm afraid. So you can't solve problems like adults, these kind of problems. Yeah. The thing is this, Shukanto cannot open the lock for sure. But what he can do is to put one more lock. Right? Let's say that, I designed the box with 2 hinges, that's all, right? 1 hinge is free. So what he does is to put his own lock. Now the box, and again, it's an unbreakable lock with a unique key. The key is with him, no problem. What does he do? The box has 2 locks. He sends it back to me. Right? Kamalika is watching, and she sees the box with 2 locks. Right? There's nothing she can do. Right? She knows that there's a diamond inside. There's nothing she can do. It comes to me. Once it reaches, what I do is to open my lock. Right? Take away the lock. Now the box has only 1 lock, which is Shukanto's lock. I send it back to him. Now, he has got the box, the lock, for which he has the key. He opens it and takes it out. Okay, I thought this would need at least an applause, right? You guys are not children. Right? So instead of 1 communication, I replaced it by 3 communications, and the problem is solved. Right? That's all there is to it. And this was the stroke of genius in the 1970s that completely transformed the problem. Key distribution problem was perhaps the oldest problem that had to solve. In the World War, you've all seen the Enigma machine, all these things. I mean, the biggest problem was always how to transmit the key. The Germans used to camouflage the key in weather reports, which Turing and Co. and Bletchley Park analyzed and could crack the code. Right? So, military generals always had the problem of communicating with the troops. They would encode things, but the key had to be somehow transmitted. Typically, they would send it in books, instruction manuals, which is unsafe because the enemy has to just capture it. And then they use all kinds of devices like page number 32, word number 33, all kinds of nonsense like this, which is always easy. So key distribution is always a big issue. And that's exactly the problem that is solved here. So, so I've already discussed this, let me know. So what we are doing is a one-way function, right? I mean, obviously that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, what is the Kohinoor diamond? Some x, right? When I lock it and send it, I'm applying a function, f of x. What is a locking function? That is, given x, f of x should be easy to compute. But given y equals f of x, f inverse of y should be hard to compute. Not impossible to compute. Remember, it's not impossible because somebody has to open it after all, right? It should be hard without a key. That's what you call a trapdoor function. So, what I am doing is I'm applying the one-way function and setting it to Shukanto. Remember, he can't unlock it, but he can put his own lock. What does that mean? He chooses a one-way function g and applies it to f of x. So what we have got now is g of f of x, which he sends to me. Now, what I apply is f inverse. Now what is traveling is f inverse of g of f of x. And then he applies g inverse. So finally what we have is g inverse of f inverse of g of f of x. Now we want a pair of one-way functions f and g such that, they commute across each other. Right? We know that f inverse of f of x is x. G inverse of g of x is x. But that's not what we want here. We want g inverse of f inverse of g of f of x equals x. Find such a pair of one-way functions and you solve the key distribution problem. This was the content of the famous paper of Diffie and Hellman. And, very colorful characters. Whitefield Diffie was in MIT. Then he was a hippie in that, 60s counterculture movement. He dropped out of mathematics. He took to rock music. He was doing all sorts of things, long-haired guy. And then he went on a trip from East Coast to the West Coast of the US, during which he got this idea. He said, somehow if we can find a pair of one-way functions that commute across each other, we could solve the key distribution problem. And he met Martin Hellman in UCLA, and Martin Hellman looks exactly the opposite. He looks very dignified, the professor. Right? Completely the opposite of Diffie. And together they wrote this paper, which I think completely transformed. And of course, they came up with one where f is actually equal to g. That's the Diffie-Hellman protocol. But the essence of the algorithm is just this. And that, of course, in the process, they came up with what we call symmetric key cryptography. And what is astonishing is that that's what you use today when you log in. We were talking about logging in, right? Every time you log in, right, your smartphone and the server set up a protocol, right, the Diffie-Hellman protocol, to generate a shared key, right? And that key is what is used for encryption throughout the communication. In fact, it's a timed key, so that after a bit of time, you log in or doing your Google session at some point, you go for a cup of tea and then come back and it says, session expired, you have to log in again. And then it will say why. I don't know if anybody has actually clicked that why. Then it will actually tell you, because the key that is generated is actually timed. And once finish the time, you run out and it has to regenerate the key. And the only way it does this is by regenerating a Diffie-Hellman key once again. Instead of one secret, you have X that is generated here, Y that is generated here, Q to the X mod P is transmitted, Q to the Y mod P is transmitted, and both are raised to the appropriate powers, and you get a symbol. All this happens very fast, you don't know it, but that's exactly what. My point is, from this very, very simple algorithm, if we understand it formally, prove it right, you can embed it anywhere, and literally, before you blink your eye, right now, a few million logins have taken place, right? A few million invocations of the Diffie-Hellman protocol, each of which generating these random numbers and communicating. This is going on, exactly. Right? That's the power of these. Right? But that we can do only when we are, we can embed this into these, large-scale things only when we are convinced of their proofs of correctness, right? And all this carries a logical burden. Right? And okay, so I'm almost out of time on this first. So, and this is what we're talking about one-way functions. And yeah, so now we're going to get to logic, and I think that's a great time for the yeah. So basically, what now I want to move to, okay, this is all fun and games, but the idea is that once you've got these basic algorithms, what you are doing is to build a term algebra based on that, right? You are applying these operations and you are building certain terms, and you want to do reasoning within that algebra. And we want to show from that equational reasoning, or I will use proof theory mostly because I like proof complexity. And the second part of the talk, what I want to show you is that by studying proof complexity within appropriate term algebras, you can get bounds on verification, and you can actually, after all, what is a proof, right? A proof is convincing a skeptical adversary. And by showing that, information leakage can be argued out, but I choose proof theory as the vehicle, but almost any logical machine will do. Okay. So, sorry for maybe taking too long on the background, but I don't really want to discuss cryptographic algorithms beyond that. To say that, as far as we are concerned, it's any, anything that involving a one-way function in the trapdoor is good enough, right? And with certain algebraic properties that we must. Any questions on this so far? Or comments?
I think questions were asked during that presentation.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I think time for a break and
Yeah.
break.
Sir, what about the Mastercard?
Mastercard. Yeah. So the Mastercard has a slightly different protocol. What it does is that the Mastercard has this extra software to every time it has a separate lock, and the Mastercard has a separate entry. Mastercard is an issue. So what does the lock need to do? The lock needs to, when it checks, right? It needs to know whether the card that it's being shown is a Mastercard or a guest card. That's it. What I told you is the update algorithm for the guest card. You understand that now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's all. For a Mastercard, once it realizes that it's a Mastercard, it's a, that it has on its memory and it simply checks. And it checks. Yeah.
So it was distinguished between Mastercard and the guest card, and then if it is guest card, it will just matches. That's it.
1 bit, exactly 1 bit that is put into the chip. Right?
Yes,
so
when
the guy is swiping in the chip, so he is also putting in the information that yours is a guest card and not a master. That's all. That bit is 0. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Sir,
I'm glad that you Yeah, yes, please, Sumit.
Sir, I have a query. For the hotel key cards, like for key Q1 and K2, so there must be added some date, like date of granted access and date of remove access in K2.
No. There is more. There is more. There are timestamps. I'm just giving you a very simplified presentation.
Okay.
But the point is that the spirit of the attack remains. Right? And what I wanted to point out is that such attacks are really counterintuitive. Right? And remember, I didn't even mention probability. All these things are probabilistic also, right? I mean, try to do probabilistic attack generation. I mean, human beings are terrible at it, right? So you do need algorithm. That is the main point of it. But I agree, the actual physical things that are used are more complicated. But, it just makes the attack a little harder. That's all.
Harder. Thank you, sir.
So then we will be meeting at 12 again.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We have deserved our coffee. I'll rejoin.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.